What's up, everybody? Welcome to Nerd Culture, the Sons of Glitches podcast. We've got a full house tonight. I'm Mike. We've got Remy. We've got John. Gentlemen, how are you on this fine evening?
Fan-freaking-tastic. Oh. Mixed reviews.
I hate my life, and I'm
God,
not interested in doing this. I'm exhausted. I was just doing a Kirk. Yeah, I want to move. I was just doing a Kirk Douglas impression before the show.
And we're off.
Yep. Hi, everybody.
Oh God, that was creepy.
So, yeah, I know. Now that everybody's turned this off, let me ask you guys a question. So, one of the things that I was talking about it on Twitch a few days ago. I think the last time John and I played Diablo, and Monday nights, 9:30 Eastern time. Come say hi.
Ooh, shameless plug. I love it.
It's not shameless play. It's our fucking podcast. I can
that's fair.
Got a point. You can plug all you want on your own plug.
Plug us on it. It's not like I'm going on, somebody else's show and doing that shit.
Well, I totally would do that too.
Oh yeah,
hell
okay,
yeah, he would.
Fair point. Yeah, I would. But in any case, one of the things that I've always thought about that series is that it's one of those games that's greater than the sum of its parts. Because if you look at that game on paper, it really kind of ought to suck. If you think about it. So this is because here's all there is to Diablo. Click, 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 death. Click, 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 loot. Click, 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 death. Click, 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 loot, repeat. Over and over and over and over and over again.
God, you sell it so well. Now I want to play it.
I'm not exaggerating. John, back me up here. At the end of the day...
That's
At the end of the day,
that's the 5-second review of Diablo.
All right.
It ought to be hot garbage. It really should be. It is blindingly simple in terms of what what you're actually doing in the game. And yes, I know that there's a crafting mechanic and I'm talking specifically about Diablo 3 here. There's a crafting mechanic, and you skill trees and talents and blah 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 blah. Yeah, fine, whatever. Everybody knows I'm right. At the end of the day, you're just hitting monsters with a big axe or spells or whatever, picking up the stuff and going over and doing it again. So that should be terrible.
Yeah, it sounds terrible.
In the modern era, it should be terrible. Like that's like. That would be acceptable in 1987 on the NES.
Sure.
In the modern era, it's kind of like I certainly would expect a little more, and but in spite of all that, it's a great game.
So what makes it a great game?
It's just fucking fun, and I don't
Okay.
I cannot articulate exactly why. Maybe Blizzard just created the perfect little Skinner box with that game, and it just works. Maybe it's just the Pavlov's dog, right? Every time you see a little bit of, I'm going really heavy with the psychology comparisons tonight, I guess, but every single time that you drop a little bit of food, the dog salivates, ring the bell, the dog salivates, ring the bell, the dog salivates, and that's just Diablo over and over and over again. I don't know.
I salivate for Diablo too.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a great game. I've played all 3 Diablos. I've played them a lot. That game, I can't think of a better way to describe it, is that it is more than the sum of its parts. It's got a level of polish and fun to it that elevates it beyond what it should be. And the reason I'm putting this question to you two is because, Remy, you especially like games that are ultimately pretty mechanically straightforward and basic.
Typically,
in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Remy's a basic bitch. That's what we're saying.
That's fucking right.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Remy's a basic bitch and you're a power bottom.
I'm fucking proud of that, man.
Notice how John's not sitting there being like, "Oh man, no, I ain't no power bottom. It's crazy.
It's great.
I ain't no, oh, fuck me dead, man. It's not cool." So, can you guys think of other games that are like that? That on paper should be trash.
I could personally think of quite a few.
Remy, you take the first wave here. I've got to follow up.
Sure. First thing that popped into my mind, as much as I love Halo, and it is more than click, 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 monster, whatever you said, but I was watching an interview with, I don't remember who it was in the on the Bungie staff, but they were saying, so we found a way to make 5 minutes worth of fun. And then we found a way to replicate it over and over and over again, because that's really all, especially the first Halo when you come to it. You walk in a room, there's Flood, there's Covenant. You kill them, you move on to the next room, and you rinse, repeat. It's just a different setting, slightly differently arranged every time. So, ultimately, you've got a 5-10 minute game in there that that they managed to kind of rinse, repeat, and make feel slightly different every single time. And it was pretty enough, especially in its day, and it had enough intrigue in the storyline, and it was still is one of my all-time favorite games simply because it's so engaging in such a simple way. And that goes for a number of games. That's just the first one that popped into my mind. It's more complex than the click, 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 but it's kind of the same basic idea.
And it's so. Here's the interesting thing. For once, you and I actually agree on something, because
oh my god,
I know. Jesus Christ!
That's a bingo card spot no one got to fill before tonight. Ugh.
Yeah, right. The interesting thing is that was the second game I thought of after I thought of Diablo was Halo. But the thing that makes Halo stand out, honestly, I remember more about the storyline of Halo and the characters from the first, especially from the first game, because I played it so much.
Sure.
So that it kind of elevates that game for me, just because that, story, I mean, and everything's relative, right? But I mean, for a game that came out when it did, for what it was, that was a really, really good storyline. For, like, there was mythology, there was a history, there was character development, you had a dynamic between Cortana and Master Chief that was actually interesting and compelling and all this stuff. And so Diablo, even now, like, Diablo 3 doesn't have any of that shit.
Oh, really? Okay.
No, I mean, not really. They try to kind of, yes, there's a story in Diablo 3, but nobody gives a shit at all.
I'm gonna be honest. I've played through Diablo 3 probably a dozen times. I cannot tell you what the story is right now.
Exactly. That's exactly my point. It's like, I don't know, some shit happens with a demon named Joe Blow, and he has to give somebody something, and there's an angel with wings made out of light, and there's an old guy who talks like this, and
I cannot give you a synopsis. If someone asked me to give them a synopsis of the storyline, Diablo 3, I couldn't do it. It would sound similar to what Mike just did, the ramblings of a madman.
Yeah.
So I suppose in that way it's slightly different, because what really drew Halo was the story intrigue and the gunplay. Those were the two things that Halo had. Yeah. Everything else was supplement.
Yeah.
Which it was a phenomenal supplement, but it was absolutely supplement.
Yeah, I agree.
Sure.
I agree.
And
those are two major franchises.
Oh, yeah.
That you can say that about.
Monumental. I mean, and I'm sitting here talking... I'm not talking shit about Halo. I love the game, obviously. I'm sitting here looking at my recording software on my computer, and behind it is a Halo ring. So I'm obviously a big fan, and they did something right. It blows my mind how simplistic that game truly is when you get to the core of it.
And really and truly, I would put out there that that's not a bad thing.
Oh, God, no.
The idea of a simplistic approach of something that's good, you know, and really you could lump almost any FPS into that same category, no matter what it is. To sort of call back to last episode, the Wolfenstein series where you're just going and killing Nazis, or
Nazis.
Call of Duty if you're going and killing terrorists or whatever. I mean, it's the same thing. You walk from area to area and do thing to thing. One of my favorite games of all time, from back in the day was the Lord of the Rings hack and slash game. It's the same thing. Basically you have these skins of these different characters from the films, and you went and killed orcs with them, and that's all you did. And then there was a new area, and you killed them again. And Diablo's a similar situation, where it's just something that's so simple where you can just kick back and you can do it. And Mike, you can back me up on this too, I'm sure. When we've been streaming Diablo for a month now ish, and it's so easy just to sit down and to play, and you really don't even have to think about what's happening. You pause for a second and update your skills when you level up, and then you keep going. There's other things where you can't do that. You can't really even hardly have a conversation with each other or with your chat, if you're live or whatever, without not being able to participate in the game. But games like this aren't like that. It's just simple, push a hoop down the road with a stick fun.
And John's country bumpkinness rears its ugly head once again.
Hey, he wasn't mentioning fried chicken this time. Let's be
No.
Well, it's still early.
He was probably rolling the hoop with a stick to the fried chicken place at the end of the block.
That's a good point. We're only 12 minutes in. We have time.
Right.
Yeah, exactly right.
It's still early for chickens.
So, here's a hypothesis for you then, that the I can't think of a better way to put it than the RPGification of genres that are not RPGs, based on what we're talking about here, is probably a bad thing, because and I mean, you guys know very well that I'm an RPG head in the worst possible way.
Oh,
right?
here it comes. CD Projekt Red,
Who?
you ready?
You?
No, that's not where I was going with this. Settle down.
Don't bring it up, Remy. I want to get through one episode without it.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Well,
It's
it
on
ain't
my
gonna be
bucket
this
list.
one. So there it is. Since Remy already brought it up, Witcher 3 is the greatest game ever made. CD Projekt Red, thank you for the
damn
$5.
it, Remy.
Let's move on.
Can't take you anymore.
But the point is that since it really feels like it's happened over the last, 10 or 15 years, that slowly but surely, pretty much every genre of game has adopted, and you could also probably blame the MMO bubble from the early 2000s for this to a certain extent, is every game's got talent trees and ability trees and perks and, an upgrade system and a crafting system and all that kind of stuff. And in a lot of cases, I think it either doesn't fit the game or it's too complicated for the game. Like Diablo, for example, has all that shit, but it's really, really simple. It's really straightforward. You've got 5 or 6 different ability slots. You progress linearly through each one of them as you level up, and then you've got like 4 or 5 ways you can augment each one. And that's really it. So if you've got a game like, one of the things that makes Halo is that it doesn't have talent trees.
Right.
Master Chief is just Master Chief. You can't upgrade Master Chief. He just is who he is. There's not this.
There's no
barrage
character progression as far as.
And
Right.
a very interesting point to that, Mike. I'm going to give you a quick pause here. That is exactly the reason why I stopped really liking Halo when Reach came out. Is because in Reach they added stuff that you could do with your armor, and you could have builds that do different things. Halo 1, 2, 3, that wasn't a thing. It was just you are who you are. You had a gun. That's it.
So
Go
it
have
didn't
fun.
matter to you that you weren't playing as Master Chief?
No.
It was just that fact alone.
Yep.
made a difference.
The armor abilities that were introduced in Reach were my least favorite part of the game, and they have stayed with the game up until now. And it's even continued on, and why I probably like 4 and 5 even less, is now there are loadouts that have, as Mike was saying, skills and abilities. You could pick, reload a little faster, or shields recharge a little faster, or whatever they were. I don't remember the exact breakdown, but you know what I'm saying. And so, to me, that took away from what Halo was to me in 2 and especially 3. I played 1 a good bit, but 1 was, lands with your friends with pizza and Mountain Dew, right? But 2 and 3 was online.
Its own special place.
Yeah, oh yeah, certainly, no doubt. But 2 and 3 online, and it was really just a matter. And to me, having those things, and and we see it in games now where it's a issue of maybe even balance, right? Things like Overwatch or whatever, where you have different classes that do different things. In Halos 1 through 3, it was just, am I better at shooting this gun than you are at shooting that gun? And that was it. There was no extra layer to it. And to me, that cheapened it all.
But Overwatch is an interesting example of this, because in Overwatch, you can't upgrade your shit. You can pick a different character, but you can't upgrade your shit.
Right. Well, yeah.
There's no talent.
You're right. You are.
There's no talent trees. There's no power ups. There's no ability buffs that you get, that you can get as you level up or anything like that. If you enter a match playing as fucking Genji, you're playing as Genji, and that's it. You're going to do the same amount of damage. You're going to do you got the same abilities. You're not going to unlock shit.
If you come across another Genji, then it's a true battle. Like
it's a true mirror match.
That's a one-on-one fight with someone who picked the same class as you. Yeah, that would be
exactly.
That would be the equivalent of what I'm talking about with what Halo 1 through 3 was to me.
Yeah. Right, and so the thing that I'm wondering about then is, well, not even wondering about, but the conclusion that I'm coming to, I suppose, is that in a lot of cases this is devs just giving us shit that we didn't ask for. And so it's chasing a market trend. So think about it. It's like in a lot of cases, it's like, hey, here's a military shooter, and oh, by the way, guys, here's a crafting system and talent trees and abilities. You guys like that stuff in other games, right? Well, we have it right here, and we're just going like, eh.
Okay, but, so now here's the part where Mike and I disagree. So
all right, whoo, close. All right,
the world is
back
right
down
again.
to earth here. Yep.
So
I know. I'm happy again.
While I loved Halo 1, 2, and 3, my personal favorite is Reach. My all-time favorite game is Borderlands 2. The talent trees, the skill trees, the ability to select a loadout, the different armor locks, or not armor locks, armor abilities, the chance to customize a character, to me, is much more valuable than playing a vanilla character. I love Master Chief as he is, of course. I love the story, but at the end of the day, I want to play a character that is uniquely me.
All right, so hold on. So let me throw a qualifier on what I said real quick, because with you saying that, Remy, I sort of agree too, which goes against what I just said. The difference for me is games that are PvP, I want to be on an even playing field with the other person, and it be just am I better than you?
Yeah.
Games that are PvE, I'm perfectly fine. Obviously, we've discussed before, Borderlands is my favorite series of all time as well. Of course, I love the builds and the abilities and the different things you can do with the combos you can do with the shields and the weapons and the class mods and so on and so forth. Of course, I love that. But it's PvE. Me fucking absolutely breaking a character or making an awesome thing doesn't matter, right? I'm just killing mooks that are computer controlled. Who cares? That when those kind of things happen in a PvP game, where it's not necessarily that you got beat by skill, and of course everyone's like, "Oh, this guy sucks," that's why he's saying that. But but you get beat by the build. That's annoying to me.
Right.
Yeah, that's fair.
So that's the clarification on what I said earlier. It depends on what type of experience.
And actually, John, that honestly hadn't occurred to me, but you're right.
Okay, so
you're 100% right.
Let me ask: when you're in a match in Halo 3, Master Chief is Master Chief. You start with an AR and a pistol, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're going into battle. Somebody picks up a rocket launcher. What does that do to your theory? No, or not theory, but your enjoyment of the game. How is that different from?
Here's the thing, and Remy,
build?
you and I met when Halo 3 was in its prime, and we played a fuck ton of that game together. You know as well as I do. Yeah, right. You know as well as I do that on any map, on any game with any power weapon, we knew the spawns down to the second.
Oh yeah.
So no, somebody's not at the top of the hill grabbing a rocket launcher and has it before I get there. It's me and him, and we both have the same weapon loadout. And whoever wins that battle gets the rocket launcher after.
So it's a risk reward type thing.
Yeah. So
okay.
The thing is that he and I, or she and I, right? Shout out to the girl gamers as well.
PC.
Yeah, right. Sort of. So we have the same opportunities to have those things in game, right? And someone grabs and fucking holds on to those bad boys. That was a viable strategy that we all employed back in the day as well.
Oh yeah.
You grab rocks, you shoot them, you get kills, you don't get kills, whatever. You put that thing in your back pocket and you don't let it go, and then the rocks never spawn back.
Right.
So, that kind of thing adds to the strategy of a game where everyone's on equal playing field. And that being said, to a certain extent, I didn't love the equipment that was added in 3 at first for the same reasons, but it was similar enough to the weapons where you could control the spawns and grab, and whatever, to where it didn't bother me long term. But with the armor abilities, like if you were in a ghost flying around the map and wanting to splatter people, if someone had armor lock, well, too bad, buddy, you're fucked. There's nothing you can do, or whatever. So, yeah, that's just to me. Let's say it just cheapens the experience, and I feel like to a certain extent, and I'm like that to this day. It's and we mentioned Overwatch, and yes, Overwatch doesn't have class abilities, or that it does have class abilities, but not builds and stuff. But a lot of times I feel like, man, if I wasn't playing this character and they weren't playing that character, that person would have never killed me. It's only because, that character is a hard counter to the character that I'm playing is the only reason they got the upper hand. That's the kind of thing that bothers me in games as far as when you're PvPing.
So, and a system like that doesn't necessarily always work in a PvE game either. So I'll give you an example that I just played through, Dead Space. So, granted, it's a slightly older game, came out in whenever it came out, 2008. So, but there's a game that visually very well done. The story is it's pretty by rote horror stuff, but it's well executed, and the voice acting's good and the writing's good. The upgrade and enhancement systems in that game might as well not have been there. They never felt like they were making you demonstrably more powerful or improving your character or really giving you a lot of. There weren't enough. They were too simplistic, and they weren't powerful enough to feel worthwhile. So there's a game that would have been way better and way more interesting, in my opinion, if. I think it's way more interesting if you're like some poor schmuck that's stuck in this horrible situation on an abandoned spaceship in the middle of fucking nowhere, and all you've got and all you're gonna have is a couple of guns, a Ripley style like jerry-rigged flamethrower from Aliens, and you've got to fight your way out of here. And you're happy if you just find bullets. That's way more fucking interesting to me than having this weird node system where, like you got to drop points into slots that are empty just to access other points. It feels like a waste.
Yeah, you know what? I got to agree there. That game felt way overcomplicated for no reason.
Yeah, and Jesus, 2 agreements in one podcast. What the fuck? Are we? Did you drink?
I'm currently drinking.
Okay, yeah, because I'm sober. But I'm just asking.
Bringing me down to your levels. What's happening?
Yeah, there's a reason. Okay.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Fine. Fair enough. But so, there are plenty of games out there that that eschew that kind of stuff and do well for it, like Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice. that came out pretty recently has none of that shit. You're this guy, and you've got a sword, and you've got a grappling hook, and you got to fight your way out of here, motherfucker.
See, I'm trying to think of a game besides Halo where that's the case that I actually enjoyed. I genuinely can't think of anything. Some of my favorite games.
Everyone go grab you a snack, get you a drink real quick. We're going to be here a while.
Back off.
Get two.
But I'm just thinking of my
Give
favorite
me another
games.
whiskey and another. I'm going to drink this whole fucking bottle, asshole, and get 2 bowls of pretzels over here, too. Shithead.
I'm just trying to think of my favorite games. I've got, we've already talked about Borderlands, where you certainly advance your character. Another favorite series is Kingdom Hearts, where that's the entire premise of the storyline, is you're advancing your character. Everything that I enjoy, there's always a little bit, just a little bit stronger next time, and now you can do this, and you can go back to previous levels and really kick some ass here and there. That's, to me, like roguelike, the Ori, things like that, the Hollow Knights, the Guacameles, the platformers that I really like are the same way. I like to see a progression of character, not just a single note through the entire thing.
Well, but it not necessarily one note. But I'm saying it depends on how it's executed. So I mean, Ori. I mean, the progression system in Ori is very, very basic.
Yes.
Right. You got 3 skill trees, and you just work your way up until you complete them. And all 3 of them are linear. So it's just bing, 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 bing. There's a little bit of choice in deciding what to put where.
Right,
but
and how fast one goes before the other, but ultimately all of them will fill.
Right, but I mean, it in that respect, it's pretty straightforward. But a lot of the, so when I think of a lot of the games, like the old school Castlevania games, or something like really old school, like Ghosts and Goblins, part of the fun of those games was how fucking challenging they were. And the reason they're or the original Ninja Gaiden, and the reason those games were so challenging, but so rewarding if you could beat them, was because there wasn't any progression except for finding new weapons every now and then. Like I'm thinking back to my, to my hallowed youth, Ninja Gaiden and Contra and Gradius.
Battletoads.
Battletoads, fuck me. Oh my god. I still haven't forgiven them for that fucking speeder level, and I still haven't forgiven the original TMNT game for the NES for that goddamn water level in Mecha Turtle.
Dude, fuck that level. That level was bullshit.
You. That was such broken ass bullshit. Just, I swear to God, I'm thinking about the seaweed from that level right now, and fuck that noise. I'm getting angry just thinking about it. I can still hear the noise in my head. It's the same way like my kids watch this YouTube series where they use the somebody saw you noise from Metal Gear Solid, the original one for PlayStation. Ring. And every time I hear that, it just like the hair on the back of my neck goes up, and I spin around like, fuck. It's like Jesus Christ. It's like, is Solid Snake gonna have to choke a bitch?
And I can see Mike walking through the house, hearing this noise, and he goes into a crouch like, what fuck? Where'd they go?
Daddy ain't happy about it. And
there he goes. He's daddy again.
He's daddy again.
And speaking of Metal Gear Solid, by the way, can we take a quick second? Because I'm sure I put this in an article for the old Nooberverse website, or maybe it was even for Ultimate Gamer a few years ago.
Wow, going way back.
Can we take a right? Can we take a quick second to talk about all Snake having to detect like sensor beams and lasers and shit in that first game was cigarettes? Like that's really all he had. So let me get this. So was that part of like secret super spy agent training or some shit where it's like a line of recruits and there's this chain smoking sergeant walking up and down? It's like, all right, boys, listen up. the only tool we have to detect sensor beams and lasers Are these cigarettes right here? Well, excuse me, Sergeant Longbutter, couldn't we use I don't know, like water vapor or something like that? That sounds like a bunch of fucking commie talk to me, Jenkins. Drop down and give me 50. Smoke while you're doing so. And it's just like, what? How did that decision get made? Like, I mean, I get it. You want the guy to be old and grizzled and shit. But you're just like, oh, well, we gotta give him cigarettes. Like, have him carry around a whiskey bottle or something. At least it's like something practical, that won't give away your position. Like, I smoked for a long fucking time, and I can tell you that, people notice when you light up. And if you're trying to avoid detection,
not the
while
best
crawling
move.
through a warehouse packed of armed guards, firing up a stogie isn't a great look. I'm just saying, because people are going to be, do you smell that shit? Are you smoking? I'm not smoking. Oh, fuck, there he is. Bang, dead, game over.
Hey.
Sorry,
You're using too much logic here, Mike. You settle down.
You know what's funny is I don't know that a game like that today could be made. It's
No.
sad because, like, Stranger Things Season 3, I haven't finished it yet, but I do know that they're getting a lot of heat for people smoking too much in there. And
it was the 80s, man.
I know that, and that's the thing, is PC culture is fucking bullshit. And people are...
Let it be
are
known,
bitching and
Remy hates
moaning.
PC.
I
All right,
fucking
go ahead.
hate PC culture. Dude, it's such bullshit. I'm all about equality, but don't be a douchebag. Don't be dumb. Just fucking live your life and let other people live theirs. Don't be... Anyway, but... It just that reminded me of that. So go on, continue with what you were saying. I apologize for diverting because that's
No. I mean, I was just kind of ripping off one of my favorite riffs that I ever wrote for a video game review, but just because I still think it's funny. The other thing that the names of the villains in that game are just, they feel like a bunch of Japanese game developers went out and just drank all the Jack Daniels one night.
it sounds like that's probably
And then
what
they
happened.
just and then they just started like tossing out random words they knew in English and slapping them together. So like, revolver ocelot. What? What? Really?
I'm sorry, what?
It's like, or what was the other one? There was another one that drives me just as ape shit, and I can't remember it. But like, that's the one that always, it's like, oh, we named this guy Revolver Ocelot. Are you sure about that? Like that got through quality
is this what
control
we're
with no
sticking with?
trouble. Why don't just name him Steak Nipples while you're at it? I mean,
Dude,
Hey,
you better watch out
those-
for steak nipples.
That's my name.
And there's the episode title.
Nipples are as big as Uncle Sam's. Oh, Jesus. Cover those up. Thank you, John. I knew you'd get
Yeah.
that one.
Good. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I do miss a little bit of that craziness, though, from those games back in the day where, they could just kind of get away with shit.
Oh, well, yeah.
Because video games weren't the multi, nearly trillion. They weren't like the nearly $1 trillion industry that they are today. Or
Well, they
however
didn't
big
take
the
themselves
industry
too
is.
seriously.
Well, I mean, some of them still don't, but the difference was the mainstream media wasn't paying attention. The only
Right.
time that anybody ever paid any attention to them back then was, in a very, very negative way, either for, corrupting our youth, desensitizing us to violence, blah, blah, blah. Find me an article before 2002 that acknowledges video games as art from the mainstream media, if you can find one. I'll be really surprised. I mean, there were articles like that in the gaming press,
Sure.
but not in the mainstream media. Something like Cyberpunk or Last of Us 2 or Kingdom Hearts 3, Remy, I'll throw you a bone.
Hey.
Something like that comes out now, it gets covered in the New York Times.
Yeah.
Like that wasn't happening 20 years ago. So, that's probably a big part of it.
Yeah, I could certainly see that being a big part of it.
And not to even mention the media aspect of it, but just the culture in general has changed as far as what people do with X information. It's much more likely to cause a buzz, either positive or negative today, than it would be at that time. Regardless of what's in the games. I remember growing up, and this still happens a little bit, but not nearly like it once did, in that everyone thought that the cause of violence in kids was from video games. You guys remember this, I'm sure. Every story, like anytime anything happened, a kid shit on the wall at school, video games. That's why. So or whatever. And so, that was kind of the attention that it initially got. And even then, people were like, well, I don't know, and this is also a time where. People thought that the Dungeon Master's Guide meant that you were worshiping the devil, so it's a little confusing for everybody. But
it was a different time.
Yeah, right.
Well, I mean, I know.
Well, that's my point.
Hey, look, I kicked off every single D&D session I played in middle school and high school. I kicked off with "Hail Satan." I don't know about you guys.
Well, I mean that's fair. But and that's the thing. So gaming, in general, now. Developers, because of the extra media attention, because of the climate of how people look at things, are going to be less risky with things. They're going to be more buttoned up because one false move can bury the the whole company really.
Well, I'm not. Well, yeah. I don't know about that.
I don't know either. I agree.
Because the stuff that we're seeing in terms of like graphic violence and sexuality and all that kind of stuff, I mean, the stuff that's coming out now is way, way more explicit than anything.
And I don't necessarily mean
back in the 90s.
Yeah, well, sure, yeah, no doubt. And I don't necessarily mean violence or sexuality either. I mean, anything that is something as simple as smoking or whatever. You see less and less of it, right? It's.
Well, yeah, I certainly agree that they're less willing to dress. I'm not talking. Yeah, I'm not talking so much about violence or sex or really anything that you would be like associate with the game rating. I'm just talking about trying weird shit. Metal Gear Solid's the example that pops into my head because it's the one that is just sticks in my mind the most, but. You don't see a lot of in the mainstream from the mainstream studios. You don't see a lot of just anything that's like really that weird or goofy anymore, unless it's kind of wink and a nudge. Like self-aware. You got to go to the indie scene for that.
So, Mike, I have to ask.
It's a little sad.
I have to ask. So you're talking very nostalgically about the weird shit, the off the wall. The crazy. Yet, anytime I bring up a crazy off the wall weird shit indie game,
everybody buckle in.
Bizarre premises, and this is not trying to stir up shit. I'm honestly curious as to why that perception has changed. I mean, okay, take what's a classic video game that you absolutely love that you can just pinpoint fucking weird.
I do have a counter argument to this, by the way, and I'll lay it out.
Okay, we'll get there.
Final Fantasy VII.
Okay, fair enough. So, what about that was weird that you liked?
It's actually tough to articulate.
Just the crazy Japanese RPG elements.
Yeah, basically, yeah. It's just it's so unapologetically over the top, and it's so the physics of the world make no sense. The plot is laid out in such a way that it's very convoluted and disjointed, but you can also still follow it. I mean, Metal Gear, a lot of those like 90s era JRPGs, actually the Japanese games from that era in the 80s too, a lot of them fall into that bucket. The reason that that doesn't bother me is because I don't mind the weird off the wall shit as long as it's wrapped up in other stuff. That can't be all you're giving me, because otherwise I just lose interest. So the hey, look how wacky we are, and something like Human Fall Flat. Or
there it is.
Or Ultimate Chicken Horse or Overcooked or whatever. Those games don't give me enough beyond what they are to engage me. I'm just not interested.
Remy just lost whatever erection he had.
Well, no. I was genuinely curious as to why older games that were wacky and had no real sense got a pass, but that explanation actually makes sense. So you need that wackiness wrapped up in a true story and game versus
or something like a kind of an obscure example. Me and a couple of my buddies way back when played the ever-loving fuck out of Dynasty Warriors 2.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Which I loved that game. Oh my god, it was so much fun. But it take more than half a step back and you look at it, it's the dumbest thing in the universe.
Oh, for sure.
And it defies all logic and all sense. But because it's wrapped up in a semi-coherent story that is pulled pretty faithfully, actually, from Chinese history, and like Xiahou Dun and Sun Ce and Zhuge Liang and or Sima Yi, and I played that game a lot. I still remember the characters.
That's incredible. I could never have come up with those names.
I'm actually kind of impressed with myself right now, to be honest with you. But the point is,
don't let him fool you. He's got a poster of it on his bedroom wall right now.
No, fap to it every night.
That's why he has the green screen up so we don't see it.
Yep. It was wrapped up in that package, so I was able to kind of chuckle at the fact that I'm playing one guy who is, just like hordes of enemies nonstop. It's like I can hit 17 people with one kick, and that's okay. It's ridiculous.
I'm a real badass. Look at me, Mom.
But right. But it's like I can leap 75 feet in the air and come crashing down and cause an explosion without having anything that's actually explosives on me, and I can send guys flying up in the air and do all this crazy shit, and it doesn't bother me because it's like you're giving me enough. Well, yeah, there's more to it. There's a little bit of a story, and the battles are fun, and there's progression and kind of stuff, and it's not just the same thing over and over and over again.
And really, that kind of harkens back to where we started here with Diablo and that simplistic, nonsensical, it probably should suck thing, right?
It does. Yeah. It absolutely does.
Actually, Dynasty Warriors is a perfect example of that. Perfect. Those games should be absolute garbage. They should be terrible. But I'll bet you if you go by hours played, Dynasty Warriors 2 is easily in my top 10 of all time. Wow. I played the shit out of that game.
Wow. So what I was expecting you to say when we brought up the weird and the wacky from the 90s or the 80s is things like Earthworm Jim and Toe Jam and Earl and shit like that. That's the kind of stuff that I played. And I love that kind of shit.
Yeah, I mean, I like those too. When I think of games like that, here's a better example from my personal history: Mega Man.
Oh yeah, good stuff. Especially X.
Yeah,
Mega Man X was the best. I
loved Mega Man. Yeah, Mega Man 1 through Mega Man X are great.
Yeah,
they're absolutely terrific. I love those games. But I mean, as soon as that's a cultural thing though. Because if you think about a lot of the weird, wacky, insane shit that we're talking about, almost all of it's from Asia.
Sure.
And so I don't know how much just either cultural ignorance or stuff, or where I'm thinking something is off the wall, where to an Asian audience it's really not. Maybe that's the case, but I just, it seems like once once Nintendo was no longer dominant and once Sega disappeared, that a lot of that stuff kind of just sort of faded away.
Which is kind of a shame because I really liked how, those games back then really captured the cultures of different peoples really well, like Mario and the Italians and things like that.
Fucking
Zing!
well, but I mean, so okay, fine. I see what you did. That hey, it's me, Mario. I'm Italian. We don't fucking talk like that. I lived in Italy for 2 years. I didn't hear a single person say that one time. On the other hand, I did see a lot of military police leaning against walls with a cigarette in one hand and a beer in the other, going, "Hey, American girl, you come, you talk to me, eh? Hey, ciao bella, ciao, hey, come here." It was gross. But the, Mario and Sonic, who are sort of the two flag bearers for those respective studios, are great examples of that kind of like goofiness that's wrapped up in enough stuff to make it interesting.
Yeah, the who gives a fuck.
Yeah, exactly. Like Mario, it's like, okay, so there's this plumber, right? And he can get flowers that lets him shoot fire, and then he puts on a raccoon hat and a tail, and he can fly, and he has a lizard pet named Yoshi, and just, hey, give me 1 second, man, let me just rip like 5 more lines of this Coke, and then I'll tell you the rest of the story. And Sonic, same fucking thing. It's like there's this hedgehog, and he can turn himself into a ball, and he can fire himself off cliff, and he has a sidekick named Tails, who has 2 tails, and he's a fox, and he flies around in a helicopter, and they're fighting a big egg-shaped guy with a weird mustache, and you're just like, who the
What
fucking
the fuck?
It's like, because if you actually describe that to somebody, you sound like a psychopath. You can't you can describe the story of Witcher 3 or of Red Dead Redemption. Remy, I know I'm just listing games you hate or haven't played, or something, like most modern AAA titles, or like Halo or whatever. You can describe those without sounding like a goddamn drugged up raving lunatic. You can't do that with games from the 80s or the 90s. You can't. It's impossible.
No,
even
you're
trying
right.
to do, and that's just from a I do kind of miss that sort of unfettered kind of silliness
Sure.
a little bit. And because it was just, I mean, play a fucking Sonic or Mario game and try not to smile. I fucking dare you.
Oh, hell no. I love
It's
them.
impossible.
Yeah.
It's impossible. Because they're so just goofy and fun and silly.
And I wonder, to a certain extent here on that note, because I would tend to agree that, but for us, all those things are super nostalgic, right? Those are the first games that probably any of us played, more or less. I wonder how a modern gamer, aka a youth of today, if we handed them, the original Super Mario Brothers or the original Sonic, if they would enjoy that with the same amount of gusto that we did back in the day.
I can verify my son absolutely loved that Sonic Mania game came out last year. He ate that shit up. It still works.
Still works.
Well, I actually, Remy, I think you're onto something there. There's a reason platformers are still a genre. And Mario and Sonic are 2 of the big temples of that
Generation.
of that genre. Yeah. But well, I mean, like same thing. My oldest kid, is going to be 11 next month. The games, when she does play on console, which isn't all that often, but the games that she does play, they're all platformers.
Interesting.
So there's something. I think there's something really psychologically satisfying about that particular style of game. It's got cross-generational appeal. It's got cross-cultural appeal. When people think video game, I think people still think
Mario.
Mario.
Yeah.
They still
Sure.
think about do 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 do.
Doobie doobie doobie.
Now,
Oh, man. That was in unison. Fuck me, dead.
That was pretty
Nice.
good.
Yeah.
Sorry, but the princess is in another castle. You fucking
you bitch.
mushroom-headed little asshole.
So
Ah!
on the note of crazy and just whack, just off the wall games that are platformers that from our childhood, when the fuck are we gonna get a new Earthworm Jim? I want another Earthworm Jim.
Oh Jesus, dude! I mean, when did the first one come out? Like '89.
So we gotta get another Earthworm Jim.
I want another Earthworm Jim, man. That was such a great
Dude,
fucking game.
I wouldn't be. I agree. It was a great game. I mean, one of my favorite. It was a great Saturday. It was a Saturday morning cartoon for a little while. You remember that shit?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. I mean,
So was Mario
So-
and Sonic.
Yep.
and Zelda.
And yeah. Oh, I remember. I was there.
None
You've
of
been
them
waiting
were
30
good.
years. I wouldn't hold your breath, man.
Fair point. Fair point.
I just I would love to see it, but 30 years
Highly unlikely.
Yeah.
No, somebody
Yeah.
with a nostalgia boner is gonna come along and say, "Hey, check this out. We reboot this shit. The people from the 80s and 90s are going to eat it up like nobody's business." I mean, Crash and Spyro came back. Why the hell not?
That's right. Spyro
We
remastered.
could
Yeah,
absolutely see it come back.
Yeah, but Crash and Spyro were both bigger, and they both came out more recently.
Oh, for sure.
So-
Yeah,
so-
they're not perfect analogies, but you never know. Somebody with that in the back of their head, with the right talent and the right team, I'll bet we could see a resurgence of Earthworm
regardless if we see Earthworm Jim or not, I've just fucking popped a Woody talking about Spyro there. That was my shit back in the day, dude. I love that
Yeah?
game.
Have you
Yeah.
played the Reignited?
Do what?
Have you played Reignited, the new trilogy?
No, I have not. I haven't. Because I've played the other one so many times. I haven't pulled the trigger on just doing them again, but newer. But, God, dude. I still remember that fucking, like, every detail of those games. Fucking guys running away with your eggs. Oh, dude. So
well,
good.
and actually, that's kind of a big topic that I think we might want to save for the next show. But how valuable is it? Can you go home again with a game like that?
Excellent question.
Yeah.
So I think that's longer than we got time for right now. But
Agreed.
we can tackle it at another time, especially because like WoW Classic is coming out.
Yeah.
Just getting a lot of buzz for reasons that totally escape me. But so
Yeah.
I don't know. But I think
That's more and more of a common thing anymore is remakes and
Yeah.
touch ups and for not
Yeah,
even
but
from
not
even
so
from
much
video
in
games.
gaming, though.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but I mean that's way more. I mean like movie reboots and TV show reboots. So yeah,
Yeah.
fine, sure. But
It's everything. Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
for video games, really?
Well, I mean less so. Less so. But I mean I'm talking less about. Let's save it for the next show.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, unless we want to make this another half hour long, I think we probably ought to table that. So, on that note, I think we will call it a night here for the Sons of Glitches. So, thank you guys for listening. As always, you can find all of our content at thesonsofglitches.com, and we will see you next time. Have a good night, everybody.
Take care of yourselves, folks.
Woo.